Hey everybody, Average Picker here. So welcome back to part 3 of our challenge lock building kind of tutorial thing. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut some serrations in our key pins here. And I'm going to cut them using some different methods just so you can kind of see how they go. Now keep in mind, these are fairly soft. I guess that one could be a steel pin. So your mileage can kind of vary depending on what your actual pins are made out of. But hopefully we can get a little bit of a selection here of some stuff cut, and you can just kind of see what does what, sort of as far as ease of getting through things and shape and stuff. So with that said, let's get to it. Okay, we're going to cut our serrations on this one using a rather dull razor blade, but it does still work pretty well. Again, just as a reminder, that's about where we're set at with the Dremel. I'm not using a whole lot of pressure. I'd say maybe medium. Not going super light, but I'm not going very heavy either. I'm just kind of sawing it back and forth. And after just that short amount of time, you can see what we've already got. Let's cut a second one. Our second one just kind of skipped a little bit and blended into our first. You can see that was not very long amount of time. We do have some serrations in there already. Trying to get a good camera focus on it. Not too bad. We'll just touch them up a little bit more. Pretty good. This one we are going to use a jewelry saw blade. This one is lightly used and it is one of the thicker ones, so I believe we're actually right down in here as far as size goes, and we'll see how it does. Okay, I don't know if it's gonna show up or not. Let's see, can we get... But that did cut in. It cut in much deeper. I don't know if you can really tell, and pretty easily, but it is a much, much thinner cut. Now, one thing we could do if we wanted to, we can actually come in this way with the saw, and we could take that little bit out, and again I'd be coming this direction to avoid shooting the pin out. That should give you an idea there. Okay, for this one we're going to come in with a triangular file, and this is a directional file, so we will have to make sure we just keep going the same direction with it. We're going to be trying to use the edge there. Just barely tapped it. There we go. And you can see with just a few passes, we got much deeper, but it was much more difficult to get up closer to the edge with this. It is doable, but you really run a risk of it jumping off of here. But, you know, maybe we want to reduce that tip just a tiny bit. But maybe we want to reduce that tip just a tiny bit, so we could do that too, using the flat. And there we go. Now this one we're going to come in with a jewelry file or a needle file, and this is a steel pin, so it's going to be a lot more difficult, but you're going to see these are nice. You can do some fine-tuned work with them, but it takes much longer. You don't really have the nice groove that forms very quickly to keep the file in position. So you've got to be very careful. Just if you're trying to, you know, do some fine work with it, you just got to make sure you keep running back and forth as steadily as possible, just in the same spot. But you can see just by the amount coming off there how much slippage there is. With the other ones we had a lot more control, able to keep it much easier. You can see I'm using this finger here. It's not actually touching the chuck. I'm just using it to steady my middle finger there that's holding the file. So you can see that really didn't take much off. In fact, it's probably going to be very difficult for you to see. There is a tiny, tiny bit of lip there, but not very much. So what we can do is we can come in with this one. Might as well. Well, let's see. Let's grab one of the other ones. It'll be a little bit easier to do. We'll come in with the triangular one and see how well this does. So try to pick up that same groove that's just barely there. And you can see that thicker jewelry file there, worked on that a lot better. But it does leave the pins a little bit dirtier. I just said it leaves the pins a little bit dirtier. I'm not sure. I accidentally cut the camera, so let's see. I'm gonna come in with this. Now we're just gonna fine tune it a little bit. Smooth it up. Take a little bit of that top edge off the pin. Not too much, but just enough to tip it up some. Pretty good. Okay, we're going to try using a more unorthodox bit. So what I'm going to do is just load up this chamber. Oh, wow, that pin really sinks down in there. Of course, that's... Let's swap that pin out for something a little bigger. There we go. That gives us something much more to work with. Now, this is a key pin, as you can see. And what we can do, though, is we can take some of that off of there. What we're going to do is we're going to mark it. Sometimes I like to actually leave that tip, do it tip down. But we're going to talk about that in another video. So we're going to mark our pin off. Not going to be a whole lot there to grip with. So we're probably going to sink it a little bit more than what we normally would. As you can see, not a whole lot there to grip. Okay, you may get to see me lose a pin on this one. You can see where the line is. We've got it really right on there. We're going to try something a little more unorthodox as far as shaping it. Tell you what, we're going to pull... Do I have a thinner one down here? We'll use this older one. We're going to use one of these. This is an engraving bit from the Dremels. I have some sharper ones, and I've got some that are a little finer tipped, but I just don't feel like digging them out at the moment. Let's see where this gets us. So you can see it hasn't done too much. This bit is quite dull. We're not really making any interesting progress. Let's try a switch. I'll try this guy. Let's see what this does. Did get to see the pin come flying out. So you can see if we'd kept at it, that of course would have given us a whole lot of serrations. I feel like we're just mucking this pin up. Let's get it chucked up though and continue to mutilate it. So what about the remnants of a plastic cutting disc? You can see it started to almost spool us. It's quite worn out though. I do have a second Dremel, and one of these days I'm going to do a video on Dremeling, pins in a Dremel with a Dremel. Let's switch back to some of these. Now, I really don't want just another spool. I want something a little more interesting than that. So let's find a flat. Said let's find a flat. That means I should just pull one out immediately. Take a second. It was, of course, right in front of me. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in, and I think we're going to tip this off a little bit. So not quite a T-pin, but getting into that element. Kind of all right. You know what? I bet if it had some serrations in there, it'd be even cooler. Just gonna let the razor blade kind of get it in there loosely. I'm just gonna dirty up the pin basically. We're not really going for anything clean, just some it's hard to see that even did anything, but you can definitely you can feel it. It's a little scruffier, so hopefully that'll give us a little bit of a hand. It's also easier to see in person as opposed to the camera, but we do have some light scuffing in there. What we'll do is maybe sharpen them up using the thinner jewelry saw. It's all right. I can live with that. So we have reduced the diameter on this one. So we are definitely, you can see, we're going to have to plug the construction holes. And let's take a look at where it's going to sit. Should be down in there pretty good. Yeah. Now what I may do is I may put this back in the Dremel, gripping it this way, and spin some of that off. The other thing you can kind of do, I'm not looking to get it completely flat, but I can come in with it in here, and I can kind of tip that off a little bit. What I don't want to happen is I do not want this to eventually work its way up into the spring, right? Because remember, the spring is going to be sitting on it like that. And over time, it is possible sometimes for that to wear through, especially depending on how much of a key pin tip you were kind of using there. If you got really thin wafers, of course, you can always stick a wafer up there. You don't have to worry about it introducing a second shear line because it's well above the shear line already. But what I'll do is I'll probably just tip that off some, and that's where we'll be at. I'm not going to go for trying to get it the whole tip off. Just enough that I'm not too worried about it in the spring, because you really don't want your spring getting all mangled up in there. So there we go. So I think we're going to call it here so the video doesn't get, again, too long. But yeah, just wanted to show you what some of the different cutting things were and how quickly some of them will actually make a pretty decent and okay cut, because it does not take anything super deep to catch the shear line. Now the tolerances on this lock are kind of crap, so maybe deeper cuts would actually help us. But all of it should hang up somewhat, so we should be all right. All right, guys, you all have a good one.